The Amazon forest is not only full of trees, rivers and birds, but every branch, every root, every shadow hides a secret. And among these secrets, the most terrible, most mysterious and bloodiest is Yakamama. This is not just a story. It is the breath that the forest itself holds. Pedro was a young hunter, tall, sharp-eyed, and with that pride in his heart that often boils in young blood. The villagers called him crazy, because he would go hunting even in places where the elders had sworn that Yakamama lived. Pedro would laugh at these things. If there was a spirit, it would run away on its own when it heard the sound of my prey, he would say with a laugh. One gloomy evening, when it was raining all over the village and the trees were shaking from the thunder, Pedro took a step towards the forest. He had a gun, a knife, a flashlight, and the pride he considered his protector. As he stepped into the forest, a strange silence greeted him. It was a silence that did not speak, it only heard. With each step, Pedro felt as if the ground were trembling, as if someone was behind him. But when he turned around, nothing had happened. A few steps later, he saw a mark on the trunk of a tree. It was a snake-like shape but made of blood. When Pedro touched it with his finger, the mark was wet, fresh. For the first time, a coldness settled in Pedro's heart, the kind that comes not from rain, but from an unknown fear. At 11 o'clock at night, Pedro arrived in an empty valley where there were no trees, only bushes and grass. Suddenly, a woman's scream, coming from afar, sharp and heartbreaking. Pedro took out his flashlight and ran in the direction of the sound. A few steps later, a girl appeared. Maybe 10 years old, dirty clothes, eyes wide open, silent. Pedro stepped forward and asked, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" The girl didn't answer, just looked up at the sky. As soon as Pedro raised his hand, the girl suddenly disappeared behind and into the bushes. No sound, no footprints. The next morning, Pedro found an old hut. Inside sat an old hunter, emaciated, silent, and with fear in his eyes. "What are you doing here?" the old man asked. Pedro laughed and said, "I came to look for Yakamama." The old man bowed his head, as if he were hearing a death announcement. "Go back. Souls don't die here, only people die." I ignored him. Pride. Pedro blinds a person. On the third night, as Pedro sat by the riverbank, the water suddenly stirred. The water rose, as if something huge were coming from below. And then, a snake-like